Hello everyone. This episode was recorded on Marion Island in March 2025 with fellow team member Rhiannon Gill. What makes this recording special is that we did it in a field hut created on the other side of the island. So you will hear some rain, me playing with some cups, hear me boil the kettle, and many other background noises. Other than that, hope you enjoy all the Islander talk.
I'm not going to say much. We can just start talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask me a question.
Oh, I am going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Your question, my first question is, you're a birder here on Marion. Okay, and you've worked here now and you're enjoying it, sort of, and you love it. Where did you get the love for birds? Because I don't think I've ever asked you that. I don't know.
It's a difficult question because I've always loved birds, but I actually always wanted to work with big cats, like everybody does.
Like leopards.
Leopards. Actually, cheetahs was the main one I really wanted to work with.
Yeah, I saw a photo in your room of a cheetah. So was it the cheetah you wanted to work with?
Ideally, yes. I wanted to work with cheetahs
And what's the reason for that?
because I love cats.
You love cats. You love cats more than birds, you would say.
It's probably equal, actually. And that's really bizarre of someone to say that because most people who love birds hate cats.
Yeah.
But I love both, and I don't feel that I should hate cats because they hate domestic cats is more to the point.
Yeah.
Because domestic cats kill a lot of birds. But I don't hate them, I love them, and the reason I don't hate them is because it's not their fault that they were domesticated. It's not their fault that they are kept captive by us. And the food we feed them obviously isn't enough for them. It makes them bored. And their natural instinct, which you can't always domesticate natural instinct. It's something that's there. It just can't be. It's like it can't get out of you. That's not the right word to use, but it's.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but not all domestic cats actually kill birds and stuff.
No,
You get some that's like chill, and then you get some that climbs trees.
It's all down to who owns them. That's the thing.
I also think so.
It's the same with a dog. You get some. You'll say like all staffies, or bulldogs are vicious and they'll like bite children.
Yeah.
But it's not the case. It's actually the owner.
Yeah.
It's how the person treats the animal, and that all.
But don't you think dogs can learn better than cats, obviously, because cats kind of go their own way, kind of, as a pet.
Oh,
I don't know.
I beg to differ. Cats can learn.
They can learn.
They can learn.
Okay.
They have a lot of intelligence.
Yeah. I agree.
And they can think, whereas I don't find a dog. Not all dogs have this ability to think. I mean, if you think about it, if you ever watched a cat jump from one roof to the next, in a split second, that cat has determined how far it needs to jump, the power it needs to use to jump. It's determined things like the weather around it. Is it going to be knocked off? It's determined how do I need to land when I get to the other side so I don't fall. In like a split second, it makes that decision.
That's true.
I mean, you ever see a dog do something in a split second?
I don't know.
They're different.
Dogs only do like the stuff they're taught to do. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know about cats. But I agree with you. They can also learn tricks. Because I'm just thinking of my mother cats now. her cat she got from the street. Why are we talking about cats? We started with birds. Now we're at cats.
It'll go back to birds.
Oh, we'll go back to birds. Anyway, she got those cats from the street, and they were like very, what's the word? They didn't like humans. Is there a word for it?
Feral.
They are like, well, not feral, but they lived on the street. So the mama cat, we called her Meow. What a crap name. That's what my mom called the cat. And then she got like a litter of, what do you call it, a litter?
You do.
You get a litter of cats.
Kittens.
Sorry. And most of them died the first litter, and she had another litter, and then more died, and I think one survived, Lily. Then Lily was later stolen. Yeah, it's just a lot of shit. But anyway, my point is, I also think cats can learn stuff, because that cat changed totally. It was not the same cat. Meow.
Yeah.
After all that litter she lost, and she gets to know people, and they feel like cats are more, I don't know.
They're intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive.
It's like my cat. If I'm at home and I'm having a bad day, the cat is actually more attentive to me. The cat comes to me and sits on my lap.
Yeah, and dogs also do that though.
But I find cats more often than not, especially if you've provided the cat with a very loving environment, it reciprocates. But
I
also
think so,
the great thing with a cat is that it'll tell you when it's had enough attention. Like, it allows you so much, and then it's like, okay, I'm done. Now I'm gonna go and do my thing. What I find with dogs is they don't know when enough is enough.
Yeah, they just go on, and then they go. Even when you tell them to lie down, they just want to play still. Yeah.
A cat is
especially
very
a
much
young
on
dog.
their terms.
Yeah, cats are on their terms. It's totally on their terms compared to a dog. It's like on the human's terms of a dog. But yeah, going back to the wild cats and how do they differ to domesticated cats. But I agree with you. Cats get a bad rep because of domesticated cats killing stuff. But like you said, it's not their fault, It's their instinct, and that's how they get along.
It's like here with the mice, we must hate the mice. No.
Yeah.
It's not their fault they're here.
It isn't. It's our fault because we brought them here.
Yeah.
On
and it
the
sucks
island.
that we have to kill them because it's totally not their fault.
Yeah.
And it's like that for so many species. We're so quick to want to kill them and get rid of them, but it's like it's our fault that they're in a place that they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. Humans are actually the problem.
Yeah.
Technically, we shouldn't be here as well. In evolution terms, humans shouldn't really be here on Marion.
Shouldn't.
Just interfering with the whole system. Yeah. Okay, I want to go back to the birds because we
we trailed off.
we trailed off of the birds.
So, initially, I wanted to actually work with big cats.
Yeah.
But technically, I suppose it's any animal.
Because you like animals.
Yes. So when I was very small, I used to dream that I would open my own SPCA.
Yeah, like
something
for
similar.
Cats, like wild cats.
For
anything, any animal
that just needed to be helped.
To be helped, yeah.
Yeah. And to get pets away from bad owners and try to give them a good home. I always wanted to do that.
I remember you told me you want to be a veterinarian, so that makes sense. So you always wanted to do that, and that's where your fascination with animals came from, basically. Okay.
But yeah, my line into birds, I always loved birds, and I always thought if I didn't work with big cats, I would actually go and work with eagles and raptors, because they do fascinate me. But I suppose it hasn't really materialized that way. But I also loved albatross, and that stemmed from watching some of those early David Attenborough documentaries when I was small. And there was one about the frozen planet.
Yeah.
And he went to Antarctica and all these places. And
I actually brought
he
Frozen
showed the
Planet.
wandering. I've got all of his stuff.
You got all of it?
All of his old stuff, all of his new stuff.
Oh, I haven't
Everything.
watched it actually.
I even have his podcast, Planet Earth.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Does he also do a podcast?
Yeah,
Planet Earth.
he does a podcast.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, so I saw his documentaries and saw the wandering albatross, and I always thought to myself, one day I'm
One
going to
day.
see that bird. You know, so
When was
didn't-
that? When did you?
When did that come out? It was either late 80s, early 90s,
Okay.
maybe. So I was 6, 7 years old when I saw that.
When did David Attenborough start? Like, when did he come back? I can't even remember.
It was in the
It's like
19...
70s or 60s. Because he's old. He's like almost 100.
He's 97 years old.
And he's still alive.
No, he's not. Oh, yeah, I can work it out for you.
You can work it out.
He's
How
the
can you
same-
work it out?
He's the same age as my grandmother, or as my grandmother would have been if
Would
she
have
was
been.
still alive.
Yeah, I can't believe that guy's still alive.
He is
actually.
99.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Because he would
And
have
he's
been...
still going. He's
yeah.
still doing like fucking...
Because he was the same age as the Queen,
Narrating
so if she
stuff.
hadn't died, they would both be...
turning 100.
Yeah, and then she'd have to send herself a birthday card. How cool is that?
What does the Queen do that? Like when people turn 100?
Yeah, she sends them
She
a
sends them
birthday
birthday card.
card. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that actually. Yeah, it's just fascinating for me because I think David Attenborough had a big impact on people for conservation.
Definitely. And for documentary filmmaking.
Yes,
Big
yeah.
impact. But
Yeah.
no one can do it like he does it.
He has the voice, but he has the experience as well. 'Cause
Yeah.
He started from a really young age as well. He just
In his
has a
20s he started with it.
fascination for nature.
Mm,
It's actually very cool.
he is. I wish I could meet him, but yeah.
Ah, yeah. He's turning 100. You might go to his party. You never know.
I only wish.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a signed thing from him.
Seriously?
Yeah, but it's not actually for me.
For who was it?
So I worked with this woman when I was still working at Sandcarb, and we were talking about David Attenborough. She was lucky enough to meet him,
Yeah.
and then he signed this poster or something of hers, and she gave it to me. I was
She
like-
gave it to you.
Yeah, I was like, how can you? I couldn't give that to someone.
Why did she want to give it away?
It's just
Was there like bad voodoo on the thing or something? Why would you give that
I
away?
don't know. She just gave it
Huh?
to me, and I was like, wow.
Like for a
okay.
gift?
Yeah.
For like a birthday gift?
No, just you love David Attenborough. Here you go.
That's nice
I
of
was
her.
like, wow, okay. So,
Maybe
yeah,
it was a replica.
You realize I took it. I wasn't gonna say
It was a
no.
fake signature. Imagine, they just printed the signature there.
Ew.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so I always, fascination with animals, and then my line to birds actually came university.
Sound, you hear that? Is it a...
And I think it's meant to be the door.
I think
or
it's
the
the
wind.
Lord. Sorry, what did you
It's
say?
okay. So my fascination towards birds came in university a bit
Yeah.
more. Although there was always apart from like the raptors and stuff, I did photography quite a bit before I went to uni. And my uncle and I have that in common, and he loves birds.
Mm.
So when I was living in the UK, he was always telling me about the birds and showing me all these amazing photos of birds.
Mhm.
So there was a bit of a fascination there that switched me towards birds. Because you'd sit in his garden and just watch all these birds coming into the garden. It was just, it was really beautiful.
That's the one thing about birds, it's cool because you can live in a city and you can still see some cool birds. But like you can't live in a city and see cool mammals or see cool
Yeah.
wild plants and trees and
I
it's
think
like
that's what makes somewhere like Cape Town so unique.
Exactly.
Because you can see caracals.
Yeah, you can see caracals. You can go.
There's raptors. There's terrestrial birds. You've got
Yeah.
marine birds. You've got marine life.
You got everything. It's basically your back garden is Table Mountain. You just go walk there, and it's like intertwined with the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
But yeah, like when you're in a city and you can only see a couple of birds, I think you'll get a fascination with birds easier, don't you think? Than with like reptiles, for instance, because you don't get. Well, not. It depends on where you live. In South Africa, but you don't get snakes in everyone's garden, or a chameleon, or a.
And more often than not, you're
lizard.
taught to be scared of those things rather than to enjoy what they provide for you.
And it's the opposite with birds. You're like, birdie, beautiful. Make it sings a nice sound. Oh, what's your
Unless you've watched Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, then you get scared of birds.
It's like, is it that movie with the crows?
I think so.
In the cage. And then somebody goes feed them.
And they like fly at some woman's face or something.
Yeah. I've never watched that movie. I really want to watch it. I've heard about it.
Same here. My gran.
The birds.
My gran is actually scared of birds, except little birds. She'll like robins and things like that.
Like big birds. Like what?
Big birds. She wouldn't say, but she would always say she's scared of birds because of that movie.
Because of that movie. Well, a raven is kind of scary. Like
a raven is, but they're super intelligent.
Super intelligent. They can talk. You can teach a raven to talk, which is cool. I would love to have a raven as a pet, but I just feel like it's not the right. I don't know why. People just judge ravens as the dead, as the death of something. You know, I don't know if I read it somewhere or if I made it up in my mind, but apparently, I think some of the Native Americans believe that when a person dies, they turn into a raven or something like that.
Well, you have to watch The Crow.
The Crow?
Yes.
What is The Crow?
It's a movie.
A movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it, and there's also a video back at base, but obviously we can't watch
that.
Oh, yeah. But this guy... So on Halloween, in the city, everyone basically just goes crazy. It's like a wild night. And on this one Halloween, this gang breaks into this apartment, rapes the woman, and I think they killed the guy, or something happened. And then because his soul hasn't gone to the other side, because he still wants revenge for what they did to his fiancée. Then he basically comes back from the dead. But the scene where he comes back from the dead is ravens tapping at his tombstone.
Okay.
And then he comes back.
back.
And then he gets his revenge on this gang.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's a nice film.
Yeah.
But it's dark.
Is it a thriller or a horror? It's just like a mystery.
I wouldn't say a mystery. It's maybe
What's
it's
that word I'm
like
looking for that genre?
It's like it's not really
suspense.
No.
Wow.
I guess someone might say it's a horror movie, but
how old's the movie?
I didn't find it that scary. It's like over 30 years old. Sure.
No. 30 years old is 90s movies, and 90s movies don't feel old for me. They feel new still. I don't know why.
I can't remember what year it came out, but either way, the guy who plays the main character, his name is Brandon Lee, and he is Bruce Lee. I think it's Bruce Lee's son. And he died on the film set.
Is that the movie he died in?
Yes.
I heard about that. Yeah, the Bruce Lee's son died.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Did he get a heart attack or something?
I think a gun went off and he got shot.
Oh, a gun went off. That's right.
Shot.
Yeah. Yeah, we can watch that movie.
Yeah,
I'm game.
watch
We should watch that.
Probably a movie Megan will enjoy because it's a bit dark.
Exactly. She likes that.
Yeah.
She likes that type of movies.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry. So we'll go back to why. This is a very long. Why did you work with birds?
No, I like it.
So I always, after being around my uncle, I started to enjoy not just raptors, but small birds a bit more as well. And then at university, when it came to do, so just a bit of background, I didn't do like an undergrad and then a 4th year honours. My honours was integrated into my 3-year undergrad. So whilst you're doing your 3rd and final year of your undergrad, you're also doing your honours
Your honours project. I had the same, but mine was 4 years.
Okay.
So the 4th year you had your project for the whole year. With subjects, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same with me, but 3 years, so it's a lot, possibly a bit more condensed than a 4-year. I don't know. But either way, my honours project, I was actually trying to go to Madagascar to do a project with the birds in the spiny forest. But then I got made redundant from my job at the time, because obviously I was at uni as a mature student, so I had my own place. And I had to work almost full-time while studying full-time, and bills and responsibilities. So I had to give up that chance because it was going to cost quite a bit of money. And so then...
There was no possibility of a scholarship or something?
No, not to do that.
Not to do that?
No. Because it was through this organisation and they didn't really do much in the way of scholarships, and I couldn't get much funding. So I then was chatting with my supervisor, and he had a project with bats, so I actually ended up doing work with bats. And then I think my fascination with birds grew even more because it was looking at the differences. It was interesting to learn about bats, and then, you know, like, oh, it's the only flying mammal, how do they fly? And you compare it to how birds fly, and so it built that fascination. And then when I graduated, I found an internship back in South Africa at Sandcob, working with penguins and birds.
Working with the penguins.
So then I did that because I was trying to get like
just checking his fingers off.
I was thinking, okay, I can, because I've been in the UK for so long, this is a way for me to get back to South Africa, and sure, this is with birds, but if I'm there, maybe I can network and find an opportunity to work with big cats. So I took the opportunity with birds, and sadly nothing really worked out for getting into working with big cats. So
this is interesting. I always thought you loved birds.
I do
more.
love birds.
Yeah, you do, but I mean, I didn't know big cats were your...
Big cats are
your first... Have you ever tried Cape Leopard Trust? Do you like leopards?
Yeah, I tried them.
But they're difficult to get in.
They're difficult. I applied for a job once and I didn't
I think there's a lot of internal
there is
stuff going on there. I'm not sure.
It's the same with the Urban Caracal project.
Oh, yeah.
There's
And what's that other one? Panthera. There's another...
Panthera, yeah. I tried with Panthera as well. They
What
had
other
a position
cats?
to do camera trap stuff, and I'm like, hey, I've got experience. But, you know, it's... A lot of those organizations, it's not always about what you know, it's about who you know.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or fortunately for those people. I just find it strange when you... Maybe the way you ask should be in a way of making the guy feel important.
But you see, that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous,
So
but
I've got to
maybe...
stroke your ego to get anywhere in
Sometimes
life,
you have to. It feels like, no?
But it's so degrading.
I know it's degrading. It's not how it's supposed to be.
No.
So that guy didn't email back, and then what?
No. So then I got, you know, after my internship, a job came up at Sandcob, which I applied for, and I got the job, and then, you know, I was like, I actually enjoy this work. This is great.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm making a difference, and I'm good working with the birds. And so I carried on with that. And then I've just continued with bird stuff ever since, really.
Ever since, yeah.
I mean, I've done some stuff with, like, other animals, like, but not hands-on work, just more leading volunteers like through the bush and teaching them about camera trapping and doing bird surveys and big game tracking as well.
Yeah.
So I've done stuff like that, which that's also very interesting and fun. Especially when you have students who actually want to learn and engage with you. And I had one set of students that really wanted to learn and were even asking me for organizations that I knew that they could get involved with more. And I thought that was nice. It's like you want to find out stuff and you take initiative.
Yeah, that's good. And this was at Sanko.
I was just after Sanko.
After Sanko.
Yeah.
Did you do any volunteering for cat stuff, like cat programs or... Because I don't know, because it's difficult to get into...
It's difficult to get into
because it's such a saturated market, because a lot of people love the big cats. Because I can remember when I was also at university in class, we had to choose a project for our honours. And everyone just stormed to the mammal person, to the big game person, professor or whatever. Who was it? She's not a professor. It was that Dr. Alison Leslie. And obviously she can't take everyone. So now she has to pick the ones she wants. She has the, I don't know if she has the authority or whatever. I don't know exactly how it worked. But anyway, I don't get that because there's so many other things you can do. We have such good professors at the university, and I was just like, screw that, I'm not going to go for the... Like, I also like big cats, but I already recognized at that time this market is saturated, and I don't think that's the way I want to go, because I don't feel like it's who I am.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, because I never grew up in a place with large game and go to, safaris or... I never did that as a kid. I really want to go like to those places, and we did it sometimes, but it's not like a thing. I felt more in touch with my environment where I am, and that's the fynbos and all that. Yeah. And then the forests, and we went from there. So yeah, I don't know, a lot of people like the big game, but it's difficult to get into the big cats of Africa. But there are opportunities everywhere in Africa, actually, not just South Africa. Yeah. But now it's like, because I heard of jobs like in, where was it? I can't remember now. But like Middle Africa, where you can get to work in Malawi or whatever. What park? What's that park's name? I can't remember that park's name. But there's a cool park there with all the wild animals of Africa you can think of. There's lions and all of that. I don't know if it has cheetah there. But I'm sure like you can get a job there. I think it will be easier there to get a job in South Africa because everyone wants to be in South Africa if they do work with large game.
It's true. I think places like Malawi though are a little bit difficult as well because...
Yeah, it's just an example.
Yeah. They
it's like
also
Botswana.
They advertise, but more often than not, they actually want to take people from their own country.
Yeah, they usually do. But you get some cases where they... Because I know of a guy... What's his name again? I can't remember his name now, but he works in one of those parks, and he's always shifted from one park to another. And he works as a game manager or something like that. He also studied exactly the same as I did. But yeah, I think what helped him, he did a master's in big wild, I think leopards, I'm not sure. I think it was leopards. And then from there, obviously it opened some doors because he got to know some people through his masters.
That does help, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still open there to go to a big cat, if you want to. I don't know. Or stay with the birds. Birds are cool.
Yeah, birds are cool, and they also need protecting and saving and need to be studied.
So I have another question actually. And it's a bit of a different topic, because I understand now where you come from with the birds. But you were on Gough Island
Yes.
for how long again?
It was approximately 11 months.
11 months. And you're on Marion for 13 months.
Yes.
So you're technically an islander.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I just want to know, how was that? Because you went to Gough as a total different job there.
Well, I was still working with birds, but it was just different aspects.
It's a different aspect. Yeah, you were working with birds, but you wanted to eradicate the mouse on Gough. That was the plan, right? And you had to save the birds.
Part of the eradication program.
So if you can just say how that worked, because I'm quite interested in how it worked, because I don't actually know. I know you've spoken about it, but how the whole setup worked.
Okay, so the whole idea with my job role there is, it was called, in bird care, you have people called aviculturists. And they're generally the people who take care of birds in captivity, whether it be for release back into the wild or permanent care. And on Gough, you have the Gough moorhen, which is endemic. And you have the Gough bunting, which is also endemic to the island. And they were very worried that when the baiting operation came during the year to eradicate the mice, that these birds would be too heavily affected and we would actually cause a population crash.
Yeah.
So the idea was that they worked out how many to catch.
Yeah, and the birds will eat the bait and die from the toxins.
Yes. Because obviously, your seabirds on the island, yes, they could be harmed as well during the baiting operation, but they wouldn't be eating the bait because obviously their food is not insects and stuff like that. Yeah, but obviously we did impact the skuas. And was there anybody else? No, probably just the skuas, but that's just because the skuas obviously scavenge. So if a moorhen ate some bait and died, and we perhaps didn't find the carcass, and the skua eats the carcass, then secondary poisoning
can kill the skua.
Yeah. Same with if it caught mice that had eaten the bait. So anyway, the idea was that we caught a percentage of the bunting population and a percentage of the moorhen population.
What was the percentage? Can you remember?
No. All I know is we had 104 buntings in captivity and we had 98 or 94 moorhens in captivity.
And you kept them all in the same enclosure?
No, not in the
Different.
same enclosure.
Different
enclosure. So each moorhen had its own enclosure. So
each one.
They had to be separated because they're quite territorial. And because when we caught them, we didn't know what sex they were, we had to keep them separated because if they're territorial, they can kill each other. That was a question I just wanted to ask, actually. Okay. I wanted to ask, do they breed with each other if you kept them together or kill each other? Yeah. I mean, it probably would have been good for us to, once we had their sex results, because we did PCR. So we took samples and then did PCR to work out the sex ratios. And then if we had too many males, we would release some males and try go catch some females.
Okay.
So Michelle, who was here for M80, she did the PCR stuff to sex them for us. And her and Chris were part of the team catching the birds and bringing them to us, along with Peter Ryan and some other people. And then also the buntings, each bunting had its own part in a cage, so they also weren't kept as pairs or in one big cage.
What, they were kept in one big cage?
No, they each had a separate cage.
Yeah.
How
big was the cage? Is it like a normal budgie cage or what?
Perhaps a little bit bigger. I can't remember the exact size, but I mean, this obviously doesn't help with a recording because they can't see a picture.
Yeah, but it's fine.
But I can give you an idea.
You can show me.
Yeah. Just see where I find the picture.
And the bunting is like it's a small bird, right?
It's a small
and
bird.
Is it a songbird?
It's a songbird, yes.
Sure, it'd be nice to have songbirds here.
Oh, it really would.
Just at least one. So it's just one songbird. It's weird that we don't hear songbirds. How strange is that? It's real strange.
It's very strange. So, I mean, this is a bunting.
Yeah. That's nice.
That's a juvenile bunting. Let's find some pictures of.
They look like the birds you get in the Karoo, you know.
Yeah, they're very.
A lark.
The juveniles are very streaky.
Like
a
lark,
very much
right?
like a lark.
I'm not sure. I don't know my birds that well. I'm
They're
trying.
like a lark. See where I've got.
Is the bunting like a generalist as well?
You can't really see the size of the cage, but
But it looks big. Well, not that big,
you
but
have it's got two sides.
is it zoomed in? On it, is he? Okay,
It's
now.
got like two sides, and you have a partition. So when you want to clean one side of the cage, you put
I
the
can just put
partition
and then
in,
you clean.
and it stays one
That's
side,
smart.
and then you move it and you clean the other side.
Why is this the first time I'm seeing this?
This is one
This
of my
is
favorite
cute. Look at
birds.
him bathing there.
Yeah, it's number 2. He loved his bath.
Ach, my mama.
So
That's beautiful.
every afternoon, if I was on the bunting duty, I would always go refill their water baths, and they love it. They can hear the water filling up.
Yeah.
And you go open the cage and you fill their bath, and almost every single one of them sits there and they wait.
They wait.
And then the bath is full, and then they straight away they go in and they go
That's cute.
jump around. And I really struggled to get some of my team members to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get them to understand that you had to encourage them to bath to keep their feather quality up. Because if they're not bathing, they're not always preening properly. And if they don't preen properly, then their feather quality deteriorates. And then when you want to release them, you can't because their feathers are damaged.
Okay,
And then you have to keep them in captivity for longer to get the feather quality to improve.
But so the other team members didn't want to bath them, or they don't understand
There's some
why?
team members that I think it felt like too much effort.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you already have to feed them and clean the cage. Okay.
So it's like,
So
why
they
do
want
you
to do
want
that
to do
extra.
this extra thing, you know?
Yeah, I have so many questions now. So, obviously, how the hell did you catch those birds? That's my first question, and get them in the cages.
So the team that was catching the birds, so Chris, Michelle, Peter Ryan, a guy called, oh my goodness.
Andres.
No. Stefan, but I can't remember his surname. Dr. Stefan
Something.
He's a German scientist, really, really great guy.
They use a net.
Yes.
Okay.
They go into the field, they use a net to catch a bird. But also you've got to remember, like the birds we have here, is they are actually quite approachable because they're not always used to humans. So
really?
they're like
Even those
fascinated.
buntings, those small
Even the
birds.
buntings. Sometimes you can sit in the field and they'll come up and peck your boot.
Peck your boot like a paddy here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know that. I thought they were also like Minsky, you know, afraid of humans.
No, not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
Okay, so you captured the bird and you put them in the cage.
Yeah,
and
so
feed
then
them.
but they had to go quite far to catch the birds. So they used to go to Gonydale, which is where we used to have the only field hut on Garth, but that got taken away.
Yeah.
And that's like a 2.5 to 3 hour walk
From the base.
From the base. Up.
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 Only up. Or
Well,
down again.
Mostly up.
Mostly up.
And then a bit of flat.
Okay, so is the
Yeah.
bunting higher up? Or is
So
it like in
you
the
have
lower?
the buntings lower down at base as well, but we wanted to get a distribution of some from the
Yes,
base
from,
areas and then some from
different gene pool, basically.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So they would catch them up there and then bring them down to the base, and the idea was to try and get them back like to the base from up there as quickly and safely as possible. So
Yo.
that's why we had that team, because they were fit
And they can
and
go
fast
fast.
walkers, and also they're birders, so
Sure.
that helps.
That must have been stressful.
It was very stressful because you'd get a radio being like, I'm 20 minutes away from the base.
And now you have to be
and
ready.
now you have to be ready for
with
that
your
bird.
cage and
Your
everything.
cage must
Sure.
be ready, food must be ready.
And that
You've
went
gotta
on for how
process.
long?
So the capturing period we did for, I think it was about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks maximum, I think. I might be wrong with the timeline. It might have been a bit longer, but the idea was to try and get them into captivity in a short space of time, so that before the eradication team arrived, the birds would have at least been in captivity for about 3 months.
3 months.
So over those 3 months, if any died, we could go and catch more. And if we were having any problems, we could work out how to resolve those problems. So that during the baiting operation, everything with our work was running smoothly and everything would go successfully.
Okay.
Yeah, and with the moorhens, it's a different catching approach. They had to go and set cages out, almost like a big Sherman trap.
Sure, but for a bird.
For a bird,
Not
yeah.
for a mouse.
And they had to experiment with different food types to try and attract the moorhens into the cage. And more often than not, they just attracted mice into the cage.
Oh gosh, so they captured mice.
Yeah.
Oh, already could kill them then.
That's what they did. If they caught it,
They
they
caught
would
it.
kill it.
They would
Yeah.
kill the mouse. No.
But yeah, and then each moorhen had its own enclosure, which I can kind of show you those. So just, actually, I can just give you an example of...
I had a question now about the bunting, but it will probably be applicable for the moorhen as well, because how many died in captivity over the time?
The buntings, there wasn't actually that many.
But they died some in the cages, shame.
Yeah, some died because they got parasites.
Yeah.
I think also, so stress in a bird builds up their parasite load.
Yeah.
And if it's not monitored or taken care of, then obviously they die of the parasite load. So behavioral observations are very key when you are looking after these birds and
Yeah, that
behavior.
makes sense.
Because you can't handle them every day, and the idea is not to handle them every day.
Because you want to keep
as
them
hands-off as possible.
It's possible. Yeah.
So you have to be watching their behavior, you have to look at the color of their feces, you have to look at the consistency of their feces. And the only way to assess parasite load at that point was to take fecal samples. So if you see a feces in the cage that's looking a bit suspect, then you take the sample and you go look at that under the microscope. And then you have to send photos of what you see to the vets that were in the UK, because we didn't have a vet on site.
On the island.
We had one on site for the first 3 months, and then when the baiting team arrived, the vet, they took the vet away, which at the time I thought
was silly.
we should have had a vet the whole time on site, because during the baiting operation, that was your key stage where poisoning events could happen, specifically with the moorhens, because the moorhens were in like outside enclosures. And so a vet on site should have been there to help with that.
Yeah.
But it was a funding thing, and obviously vets are expensive.
They're expensive to keep there, yeah.
But yeah, when you have them in captivity, it's a process. You have to be watching for anything and everything all the time.
So that was basically your biggest job there, to check all the... But I can remember you also helped with some of the baiting when that actually happened as well.
I did. So I only did like one day of bait loading because it was offered. Would anyone like to try it?
Try and help.
Yeah.
No.
So I did
So they
that.
needed some help.
I wouldn't say needed. I
Needed.
think they just offered everyone the opportunity.
The opportunity.
Like, you want to have a go at this
Okay.
for, you know, for the sake that you're here and the opportunity is there, you know.
Yeah. So they baited the whole island basically.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, or did they also leave out the top?
I think
because
they
there's not
did the top because they threw helicopters in like these straight lines.
straight lines.
And this girl who did all the GIS mapping, after every bait session, she used to produce a map to show you where the helicopters flew. So they did like straight lines up and down like this, and then across like that as well.
Like, what is the highest elevation in Gough? Because I don't even know.
Now you're
700
asking.
meters, maybe.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go check in that Gough book in the library.
Yeah, we should go check in that book
Yeah.
actually.
Because the highest
So I think it's not as high as Marion.
I don't think it's as high as Marion.
So it makes sense that you'll rather bait the whole island there.
You do have a lot of like cliff caves and things. And obviously your vegetation is different and more dense, so that's
like
where the baiting
yeah,
doesn't go so well.
doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And you would rather do hand baiting.
Yeah, because like when you drop bait over a bog fern, it potentially stays on the leaves at the top. It doesn't go to the bottom, but more of your mice are at the bottom than on the top.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after the baiting, then obviously you had to release those animals again, right?
Yeah.
All the birds.
Yeah.
How did you do that? That's what I want to know. Like you did you release them at the same place you captured them, or did you go just release them anywhere? That's what.
So okay, firstly with the buntings, we had to put them into aviaries to get them used to the outside again. Because when they were in cages, the cages were kept in these large tents. So these birds weren't exposed to the outside environment for the entire time in captivity. So it was like 9 months in captivity. So we built aviaries outside and used to put like between 2 and 4 birds in an aviary. But we had to assess that because some birds would fight, so you'd have to split them up and work that out. But they were then kept in an aviary for, I think the most we did one in an aviary was about 2 weeks, but that was because there was a bird wasn't coping very well. But tried just for like between 4 days and a week was our maximum. And then once we were happy with it's acclimatized and also it's gotten used to flying properly again. Because you can think when a bird is just flying in a small cage, it loses its muscle mass.
Yeah.
So it has to build up that muscle strength again and its flight muscles. So you have to assess and see, make sure that it can fly high, that it can sustain its flight, and that it can land properly as well and take off properly, and and that it's eating well. And it's dealing with everything else.
And you need to monitor all of that.
Yeah. And so once you're happy with that, then we go into the aviary and using nets, we catch each bird. Each bird goes into its individual little bag and then we go to the release area. We were going to try and release the birds that came from Gonydale back at Gonydale. But because of the stress of them being in the cages for so long, we decided that we would rather go, I think it was a quarter of the way to Gonydale and release them there.
Yeah, because you don't want to place more stress. You're afraid the bird will die, basically.
Yeah, and also because people like Chris, Michelle, Peter and Stefan, they'd already left the island.
They were not there.
So we didn't have this team of like fast walkers who could get up there quickly with a bird.
So they already left. Why did they already leave?
Because they only had they were like Peter and Stefan were only there for the first 3 months to help with the catching process and some other logistic stuff. And then Chris and Michelle were, the initial contract was the 3 months for the catching and everything that involved, and then they were there for the 3 months of baiting. And they were going to stay on to help for the rest of it, but then they got a job offer in one of the Seychelles Islands in El Dabra or something. And so they went for that. Because their initial contract was only the 6 months anyway, so they weren't obligated.
So at that time when you had to release the birds, like how large was the team then? Like after the baiting?
So originally it was only going to be 4 of us, 4 aviculturists and our manager. But before the baiting operation, we had to send the manager home.
You had to send the manager home?
Yeah.
What happened to the manager?
Let's just say he wasn't doing his job very well. There was too much conflict and favoritism, and he was more of a hindrance to the project than a help.
Okay.
So there were the 4 of us.
Island drama.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were 4 aviculturists, and then we had the help of Varnica and Rolf, because they were the overwintering birders at the time,
Okay, cool.
along with Kim Stevens, who was also an overwintering birder. They helped with it. And then we had Dylan Seaton, MATC. Like, he was a source technician, but on his days off, he used to come and help us with our work. So he came to help release. And then 3 members of... Hareen, Tom, Sankey, yes. 3 members of the bait loading team were asked if they wanted to stay on after bait loading and help our team, because I think they underestimated the amount of work we had when they only hired 4 of us.
Yeah.
So luckily the main boss, Andrew Callender, he listened to sort of how we were feeling and how we were doing and said, okay, yeah, you do need more help, you need a bigger team. So he got those 3 people to stay. And then we had Varnica helped source Liesel Pretorius.
The sealer.
To come on board as well. So she came, and because she's a vet, she helped with some vet stuff as well, which was really useful. And then we also had Antje. She German? Yeah, she's one of the scientists who also works for the RSPB. She came as well to help for a short period of time.
Okay, so you had a lot of help actually.
Yeah.
A lot more than I thought.
I mean, like I said, initially we wouldn't have had that help. It would have been us 4 plus the 3 overwintering birders.
But it's a lot of birds. Yeah. And if you have to go release them at different parts, jeez.
Yeah, and the thing is, whilst one group is releasing, you've still got
you still
other
have the other
birds
ones
in care that
you have to take care of,
and everything. And everything must be cleaned and...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's a difficult job. So after that, did some of the birds actually eat the bait? The wild ones, I mean, now. The ones you didn't capture. And did some of them actually die from...
So the buntings, I would probably say, if any did, was probably like 1 or 2.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
That's interesting.
So the buntings, realistically, we probably didn't need to catch.
Didn't need, but you were precautionary, obviously, because you didn't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
The moorhens, I mean, even before we took them into captivity, we had a few that were sick around base.
Yeah.
Because around all of our enclosures and inside the tents where the bunting cages were, we also had a job was to check mouse traps. But we had mouse traps in those boxes.
Those
like black boxes that have a little hole.
Isn't that the Sherman trap?
No.
That's not the Sherman trap. What's that called again?
I can't remember what it's called.
I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah.
I should know what it's called.
But either way, the trap is not out in the open like like here.
Yeah.
It's in those boxes. So we had to bait the traps and set them and check them I think initially it was like every 2 days. And then
What was the reason for that?
to catch mice around the
Around
bunting cages.
so they don't
so they
disturb
don't-
the
yeah.
animals, the
But
birds.
also around the moorhen enclosures, we didn't want the mice eating holes into the enclosure that allows the moorhens to escape.
Okay.
But obviously a lot of these traps were baited with poison. So then the mouse eats some poison and maybe doesn't die in
The trap and
but
goes
gets out, and then a moorhen eats it, and then you get
eats the
second.
mouse.
Yeah, because the moorhens are like the paddies, they scavenge.
They scavenge. They'll
They'll
eat anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we had a few that had secondary poisoning, so they died. And then
In
obviously
captivity
the skewers
or-
eat the... no, this was before they were in captivity. In captivity, luckily, we didn't have any die with poisoning. It was more stress related.
Yeah.
Because the moorhens stress very much. They're not like the buntings where the buntings are quite curious about people. The moorhens are a lot more skittish.
Yeah.
And they run away from you very quickly. So when you work with them in their enclosures, you have to be really calm, collected, and you have to know where they are.
Otherwise
And
you
just-
stress them.
Otherwise you stress them, yeah.
Sure. So they get a lot more stress than our paddies here.
Oh, a lot more.
A lot more. Because
Yeah.
these paddies are quite chill here.
Yeah, these guys, they're very curious, where moorhens are...
They'll
not.
probably have to capture paddies here then. If they do a bait here, I would say.
Possibly, but the difference you have here, which I'm sure this is something Peter Ryan has told me when I spoke to him about it, is that you have paddies on Prince Edward.
Yeah, that you can just get.
So the idea is if we have a
yeah.
population crash here, we just bring those paddies to Marion to start breeding. Which on Gough we could have done because there are moorhens on Tristan. However, the issue is that we don't know if they are genetically the same.
Or they're breeding with each other or not.
Yeah, but also if they're the same species, or if like
Might
the
be
ones on
like,
Tristan are a subspecies.
Yeah.
And then the
How
other
far
problem,
away is Tristan
it's
from
about
Gough?
200 kilometers.
Oh, that's far.
I think it's I might be wrong
That's
with
quite
the
far.
distance, but that's
Then
what
it
my
will
memory
definitely,
says.
I would say, have a different
But the biggest
genetic
issue
pool.
there is on Tristanian's farm. So they have chickens, they have pigs.
Oh.
So
can
you could
obviously
introduce disease onto
yeah.
Gough, which you don't want to
You don't want that.
Yeah. So that's one reason why we had to catch them.
You don't want to get disease on,
No.
on purpose. Because obviously birds travel and they'll still bring disease. You can't
You can't
Stop.
stop it, but the thing is, like, the moorhens and the buntings don't travel between the islands.
islands.
Because the moorhens don't fly.
They don't fly.
No.
Not at all.
Not like the paddies. Like,
Oh.
they can do a little bit of a,
But if they don't
like,
fly,
jump and move, but they're more, like, on the ground.
On the
running
ground.
around.
but if
Yeah.
they don't fly, then obviously the genetic pool will probably be different then.
That's the hope. But we
That's
don't
the
know
hope.
if, like, the ones on Tristan came from Gough, or the ones on Gough came
Yeah.
from Tristan. But either way, the ones on Tristan obviously have been around other species that are not native to Tristan anyway. So
So they're used to the diseases.
yeah.
Okay.
But
That
yeah,
makes
after
sense.
the baiting, when we released the moorhens, I mean, obviously we had to wait a while to assess that the bait had degraded in the system. So the baiting team did trials, and at certain points they were like, yeah, we're pretty sure it's degraded in the environment. And then the 3 overwintering birders had to continue doing trials and monitoring to see. And then we reached a point where we had to make a call with the moorhens, and actually we released them earlier than planned. But we had to do it because too many of them were getting high parasite loads because of stress of being in captivity. So we released them earlier than planned, and we just had to hope that the bait had degraded in the system.
Degraded, but you weren't 100% sure.
mean, people were saying they were sure,
They
but
were sure.
I wasn't.
But you weren't sure.
No. And we did.
Why were you not sure?
I don't know, just felt like, how could you be 100% sure in that environment when you have such dense vegetation that every patch you've got degraded bait?
Yeah, but
It's so difficult to assess, so you're never going to be sure. So you have to take the risk of.
yeah, there's always going to be a risk.
You know,
The whole operation is a risk.
yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, we had to take the risk of releasing them early, or you keep them in captivity and you lose half of them in captivity, and you don't want to come out of a project like that saying, oh, half of them died in captivity.
Yeah.
But
it
now we
sounds
come
worse,
out of the
actually.
program and most of them died
Afterwards. Most of them died after.
That's what we think, because when the birders went to go and do their usual transects to find the birds,
And
they
when was
weren't
this?
finding any.
How far apart was this after the baiting when they did the transit?
So after we released them, so like the baiting ended, and then it was about 2 months after baiting ended we released the birds. The moorhens specifically, they were released. Yeah, they were released in October, so that was during takeover period. And then straight after we released them, we used to go out, the aviculturists, and do transects as well, and do callbacks. So you play the call of the moorhen and see what responses you get. And we were still getting responses, like, you know, within the first couple of weeks after we released them. And then I think it was a month later, the responses were getting less. And then when we left the island, the birders weren't really getting very many responses.
So they started to die from the...
That's what we think.
From the bait, basically.
And also now they haven't been getting many responses. So there are still moorhens there, because they have found some juveniles, which means there's somebody breeding. But it's definitely not the numbers that were there before.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the moorhens numbers, and they were already endangered species, right?
I think so.
Or are they just vulnerable or very
Let me see
rare?
I mean, obviously because they're endemic, there's definitely...
No, can't speak. Oh, my stomach. Anyway.
Okay, I don't know, I can't see on my app, but I'm sure they will be.
So the numbers went down by a lot.
Yeah.
Like half, more than half than it usually was, or?
I would probably say more than half.
Sure. That's a bit hectic.
Yeah, and then obviously in the December when we left, when we were on the yacht back to Cape Town, that's when we found out that the mice returned. Because the birders had some camera traps out, and they saw
How long
mice.
did it take before they found the mice?
But that was December.
December,
Baiting
so
operation ended
3
in
months
August.
about.
August, September, yeah.
Hey, shh. So in a nutshell, the baiting didn't work.
No.
Basically.
I mean, it definitely caused a population crash with the mice.
With the mice, yeah.
But there was still a population somewhere that
didn't get affected. That's the only thing you need. You only need a small population, and they breed really quickly.
Yeah.
Do you think for the moorhens that they could have caught a disease in captivity, and that could have also been a reason that they killed off, and it's not just the bait? Is that a possibility, or?
It's possible that the stress that they went under in captivity possibly hadn't dissipated in their systems when they were out in the wild. And I mean, they didn't have to acclimatize to the wild. That's one difference between them and the buntings, because we kept them in outside enclosures, and we kitted up the enclosures with as much wild vegetation as possible and made it as natural as possible. The only unnatural thing was that they had no contact with each other. So they could see the other moorhen in the next enclosure, but they couldn't get to it. And I feel like, yes, they're territorial, so the potential is if they could get to it, they would fight. But they also underwent stress of that, what if there's a female and they want to get to the female.
Yeah, and they can't.
And they can't. So this is like this continuous.
That's a difficult thing, but if you think about it, it might be, if you guys did not capture them, they might have been gone extinct then.
Yeah.
You never know. You know, the ones obviously you didn't get samples for each one's DNA and you can test them now and see where they come from, the juveniles for instance. Did you guys do something like that?
I mean, we just did DNA samples to sex them.
To sex them?
That was it. As far as I'm aware, I don't think they kept...
If they kept that, you can technically go and get samples from those juveniles you see and see if they relate with the ones
if they can catch them, If they're still
that will
there.
actually be interesting, because then you know at least that worked.
Yeah.
And you can actually replicate that again in the future if it's needed somewhere else.
I mean, we did pit tag the moorhens.
Yeah.
Pit tagging is useless really in the moorhens because, well, not in birds, but in moorhens specifically, because to read the pit tag, you either need a device and you need to scan the bird, or you need to have cables on the ground that every time the bird goes over, it pings the pit tag, and then you get that data. But
the device is probably better, but then you have to capture the bird.
You have to capture them. So the only good thing with the pit tag is that if you did find a carcass, you could scan the carcass to see, okay, did it have a pit tag? But then you also have another problem, is if you find a carcass that has been partially scavenged, there's a possibility that there's a skewer running around with a pit tag.
Exactly. That's the other problem.
Yeah. And we couldn't put rings on moorhens, because that also would have been a beneficial thing. Because at least if you see the moorhen and you see the ring, you know it's one of yours.
But you guys didn't do that.
We couldn't, because for some reason with the Goff moorhens, the size of their leg, the ring that you could put on doesn't fit all of them. And the issue as well is that sometimes the ring gets caught on vegetation and can actually pull on the bird's leg and break the bird's leg.
So the bird's leg is really thin.
It's quite delicate.
It's quite delicate.
Yeah. So you couldn't do that.
You needed a really small ring and
it not to be caught on vegetation. So we didn't do that. And also the Tristanians, who obviously govern Gough Island, their conservation department didn't want us to put rings on them either.
Interesting. I don't
understand. I don't really know the whole reason behind it, but it's politics.
It must have been politics, because that doesn't make sense. If you give them a ring, probably better to do that.
Just
to try to capture them and get DNA. It's a lot less costly.
Exactly.
And you could just done it with like 20, not all of them.
Yeah.
Just to see. I don't get it. That's
we
weird.
were also going to radio tag them and just track them with the radio.
Yeah, like if we could track like 5 of them or something.
But it was deemed that would be too difficult as well. So even though we had the equipment to do that, we didn't end up doing that. So that's why now we don't know. Where
does Gough stand now with them? Are they now, if they come back, that was how many years ago?
It's 2021.
It's 4 years ago, about 3 years.
Well, the last I heard was about those juveniles, and that was probably about 8 months after we left. So since then, I haven't heard anything. But I'm sure if I chatted to Chris and Michelle, who are there now, they might be able to say.
To say if they're doing better.
Or if they've even seen or heard any more hens.
And what's the update on the mice population and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that MFM needs to take in consideration if they want to do bait here. Want to kill the birds. And the vegetation, like you said, is a big thing. That makes sense. Like if you throw bait from a chopper and it hits all the vegetation, and it sits on top. I know some mice can actually climb up on vegetation, but I don't know.
Certain types of bait degrade very well with rain, but the thing is you don't want it to degrade too quickly because you want the mice to get it.
Yeah.
So there's this really delicate balance between how much it degrades and when it rains and
there's so many factors you need to take account of. It's not just
Yeah.
that. It's like the availability of food for mice as well.
exactly.
Like, you want to do it when there's no other food. And there's only bait for them, kind of. And Gough is a different island than
Yeah.
Marion. Marion, there's actually a time when there's not really any other food for them. And that's
Yeah.
our winter here. I don't know about Gough, but it feels like Gough has food available more than Marion, just because of its higher diversity, I would say. But I don't
would
know.
say so. I mean, I saw mice year round.
Year round.
Yeah.
Not like here where you only see them in the
Yeah.
season, basically.
I mean, we had mice in the base as well. You'd often catch mice in the base. And I mean, those traps around the enclosures that we had to check, very often, like more often than not, you'd have
You always
mice.
have mice.
Or
Okay.
definitely presence of mice. You know, you see mouse droppings and fur and...
Then I would say, why did they only do one bait session? Or how long did the baiting go on for?
So it was over 3 months.
Over 3 months. So
But it
that's
was
long.
only 10 sessions, I think,
10
because it was all
sessions,
weather
yeah.
dependent
Yeah.
and wind.
And wind, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had to pick windless days, and
Yeah.
obviously the baiting team would be sat at base more often than not doing very little, because it was kind of, okay, guys, get ready,
And then they get ready.
and then it's like, okay, sorry, the weather's turned,
Yeah, it's a
no
cancel.
go today. Yeah. But then we were lucky because a lot of the bait team came to help with our work as well, and assisted with some other things whilst they were there, so they didn't just like sit around and do nothing.
Yeah. I think what you did was really interesting, because you had to take care of wild birds and make them kind of domesticated for a while,
Yeah.
and then they have to go back. Now they've like gotten used to domestication. So it's a weird concept,
Yeah.
because it's not like you're rehabilitating them. It's more like
No.
you're just trying to
You're
keep
making
them
sure they survive. You're
to
keeping them
survive. Yeah,
alive.
that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's so difficult to, you had to make people understand that when they are looking after those birds, especially like with the buntings, when you are like, say, cleaning their cages,
Yeah.
there's lots of people having loud conversations, and you have to go in and be like, shut up.
Shut up.
Stop talking, just clean the cage, because you are making the birds accustomed to you. And because a lot of the birds we had, especially the buntings, were juveniles, they
Yeah.
weren't adults, they're more susceptible to becoming habituated.
Yeah. So
And then you struggle.
would you say they can become like pets after a while?
There's one that's called the base bunting now. It hasn't left the base area.
Seriously?
And there's one that we have rings on because of captivity.
Just one at least.
I think one that I know of, yeah. We had one as well when we released it. It kept coming back to the aviaries. And we had to just keep on like discouraging it. And finally, I think it flew off somewhere else. But
Well, it makes sense. You got food there. Why would you go through all the effort?
exactly.
You can find it itself now. Yeah.
But also stress levels. I mean, you need to be calm and quiet around any animal. Even here, when you approach the albatross or the seals, you really should be sort of mindful that you could be a scary thing to them. And so it's about being calm. It's about not necessarily making loud noises. I know it's difficult when you're having fun and you see something cool and you want to talk.
Yeah.
But there is a point where you have to think, shit, it's actually a wild animal. It doesn't know who I am, and my behavior towards it could impact its survival.
But I would also say the animals here, I feel like most of them are used to humans by now. Because every year there's been a team for how long now?
Yeah. I'd definitely say the ones around the base stretches.
Definitely, yeah.
But this
not
side
all
of the
of
island,
yeah.
you need to be a bit more wary of that they're not necessarily used to.
Not that used to,
Yeah.
But they know about the threats, I would say. Yeah, you have to. I've thought about it today, actually. When I was walking, I was like, shame, these poor animals, they actually, on the island when they're here, it's their home, you know. It's like us
We're
sitting
just
at the
invaded.
couch and watching TV. You know, they come to
Yeah.
relax. They're off from work. Because, you know, in the ocean, that's where they play. You know,
Yeah,
they have to hunt
exactly.
there, swim around there. Shame, flipping, it's dangerous. And they're in a natural state there. Here they're a bit of their unnatural state and they're
Yeah.
relaxing, kind of, you know. They don't have to fear the open waters of all the dangers of the ocean and the wind
Yeah.
and the stuff that can kill you in the water. And now we come here and just disrupt everything, you know. It's quite funny, actually. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to ask now another thing about golf now, but now I can't remember. What was it? It was basically about the baiting or something. That all that effort and then it didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's quite sad because obviously the whole point of that was for, I think it was for the Tristan albatross, right? He also gets eaten
Tristan
by
albatross, the cities, the in the Atlantic yellow-nosed,
they're chicks mainly,
burrowing
right?
birds. So
Get-
it wasn't just. It was also for the McGillivray. I can never say that right. McGillivrays prior.
Gilbury.
Yeah.
Gilbury's
They
prime.
live in caves and burrows, and they were hit quite hard by the mice.
So the mice eat the chicks of those birds mainly. Or was it the adults as well?
Definitely the chicks, the adults. I would probably say yes as well, because they just sit in caves and
No, they sit in caves and the mice
mice
just
can come and
go around
Yeah.
on top of them and chow them.
yeah.
But that means the mice population there is also too high and the plants don't give enough, and there's not enough invertebrates and stuff still.
Yeah. There's lots
So-
of flies. Those flies you find at Kildalkey or in Gough.
Yeah, those blowflies. Yeah.
Lots of slugs, but the slugs are bigger on
Yeah,
Gough.
I think it's a different species. Or it's
Yeah.
just because it's warmer there that they can become big.
Bigger.
Or the diet is better maybe and they
Yeah.
can become larger.
But it would be interesting to compare. So I take it Monique's been measuring the size of the mice here.
Yes,
She
she
has.
has, yeah. And she's weighing them as well.
Okay, because the lady, Dr. Araceli, who did, she's like a mouse expert. She was there on Gough for the baiting operation. She was measuring the mice there. And I think she was saying that they're actually bigger. So they're not the usual house mouse size.
Do you know what size they are? Can you remember? Be
I
interesting
have
to
a
know
paper somewhere that I need to read, and I don't know if it says in that paper about
what the
size
size.
was.
Yeah, like now the ones she's catching, they're weighing a little bit less because they're still like juveniles.
Yeah.
And they're growing up and they're going to feed now. In 2 or 3 months you'll see they'll be heavier
It'll be
again.
heavier.
Yeah. So that's actually so unfortunate, you know, that whole program and then the mice are still there. But I was just thinking, at least you brought the numbers down. So maybe now you can give a rest for the birds. Because the mice numbers need to build up again.
Yeah.
And that will take time at least.
And perhaps the mice in the populations that are there now haven't quite learnt that they can go and feed on a bird.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's a positive outlook about it at least.
Exactly.
Because I was thinking it'd be such a shame doing that, such a unique experience and job, and then at the end it didn't work. That's like, well, fuck me.
I mean, what I felt the worst was obviously we were like, I think it was our second day into our yacht journey home, and
Yeah.
you know, you're feeling all positive because you've released the
Yeah,
birds,
you're
that
like,
all
it
went
must be
well.
such a relief. And like,
And
yo.
then here comes this call on the satellite phone and they tell you, and you're like, yes, you couldn't have just waited till I got home, hey? Now you've made our yacht journey home, even though it's horrendous because we're so seasick and
Sure.
like, now you've like added this extra layer of shit.
They already called you guys on the yacht.
Yeah.
That they seen
To
mice
tell
already.
us that they found mice. Yeah.
Oh my god.
They did it because they were worried that when we get home, we would see it all over like social media and stuff. So they wanted to just make us aware before we got home. And we were just kind of like, what difference does it make whether you tell us now or we find out the day we get home?
Like, how did you feel after that? Because it was like this whole year of doing this and being motivated to finally be part of something so unique, and then didn't work. Shit. Did you feel like it was a failure of a year? Did you feel like that?
Yeah, but more so I felt like, for me personally, I felt kind of sick for the moorhens, because it was like, great, we put these birds through all this stress, and now they're back into this environment where they potentially won't survive, because what if there is still bait in the environment? And then now there's still mice.
Yeah.
So basically, I just felt like I sentenced the moorhens to death.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
It is.
But hopefully the moorhens will come back.
I hope so. They're very charismatic birds. They're kind of, in a way, they like the paddies, but not as inquisitive as the paddies. Yeah. They're more skittish, but in captivity they had all these, I don't know, they just have personalities, and you know, when you work with them every day, you learn, like, this one you've got to approach from this angle, and don't go this way in the enclosure, and you know. We actually had one with cancer.
Sure, that's interesting.
Yeah, we used to call her Granny Moorhen.
Where did she have cancer?
She had a big bulge on her, I think it was by her cloaca, yeah.
Okay.
I think we did euthanize her in the end, because it just seemed
Couldn't
stupid. Why keep a bird alive? It's costing you food and everything, and it's potentially going to die of this cancerous growth, so it's very silly. But that's also another difficult thing, is to convince the whole team that you need to end the bird's life.
And obviously there's some that
don't.
disagree, like,
no,
what are you
we
doing?
Can make it better.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, but you're not seeing the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
It's that this moorhen's taking up the space in an enclosure for a potentially healthy bird to occupy.
And you need to feed it, and then it's going to die, and what's the point in losing all that? There's
a food cost, there's a time cost, there's lots of things, and you know, you have to support the one that's got more chance of survival.
So, are they thinking of doing it again?
I don't know. I imagine so, but from what I've heard, so the RSPB only had a...
What is the RS? What does that stand for?
The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds.
Okay.
It's a UK organisation. They only had a contract for a certain number of years to do work on Gough Island, so as in to send overwintering birders to do research, and then to do the eradication program. And I think this year is the last year that they're doing it, so their contract ends.
They don't have funds.
They don't have funds to do more, so I don't know if another organisation is tendering to do stuff, or if next year what you'll just have is DFFE will be sending their source people and base personnel, and then maybe the Tristanians will send 2 people from Tristan to do some bird monitoring.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So the people that's part of MFM that helps, I think it's some New Zealanders. Were they involved at Gough at all? Do you know?
We had our whole, like the helicopter pilots were all New Zealanders. And you had, what's his name?
So it's probably the same people who did Macquarie Island and what's that other island?
Macquarie, they did South Georgia.
South Georgia, yeah.
They've done a few others. They did Henderson Island, but Henderson also failed.
Oh.
That was also RSPB, did Henderson Island.
Where's
Failed.
Henderson Island?
Yeah.
Is it in New Zealand side or South Georgia
I
side?
think it's probably South. I'm not. Actually, I shouldn't answer because I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just gonna take a guess and it will be wrong.
That's fine.
The only there's been a few successful islands, but the biggest success was South Georgia.
I would also say that because that's a massive
It's
island.
a massive island, yeah.
It's actually amazing that they were successful.
Mm. But
And, like,
two
you have
of
to-
the guys that did that came to Gough to do our eradication. 2 British guys who worked on that.
And what did they say? Did you have an opportunity to speak to them maybe about why did South Georgia work and Gough?
They gave a presentation one evening about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't really glean much information from it. But
Did they
my
wanna-
thoughts of the vegetation is different,
Okay.
so that helps.
Now what are their thoughts? What did they say?
That I cannot remember.
You couldn't remember, didn't you? Because you didn't care. What?
No, I did care. It's like something that hasn't stuck with me, I think.
Okay. So they had all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know how South Georgia looks like, but is South Georgia not also like Marion where it's low vegetation, no trees? Or is it like Gough where you actually get small trees as well and
What's further
shrubby?
south, it's
Yeah.
closer to Antarctica.
So I would say it's more like Marion.
I think it's more like
and that would make it
Marion.
easier
Yeah, I can't recall seeing pictures
to
with
throw
trees.
bait. It makes it really easier to spread out the bait evenly.
Yeah. So I think Marion could be a success
I also think so.
if things are done.
But like
properly.
I always said, like you have to combine it with the trapping, I feel. Especially around human places. You need to do trapping and a lot of bait around
And I
human
think
places.
human
as well.
places you need to do more hand baiting than anything else.
Yeah, and you need to throw
Yeah.
the bait
And
everywhere
I
in the
think
base.
in lots of places it would be ideal to have the helicopter baiting, but also do hand baiting as an extra.
No, definitely. Certain spots. Like I've been walking here on the island and I'm seeing a lot of sedges being eaten by the mice. Heads being bitten off. And it's getting worse as you go on now. But like I already told you earlier today, you're thinking like it might actually be beneficial to the plants. We don't even know. So it's distributing the seeds to its burrows or wherever it drops it, because sometimes mice just drop seeds some places and then forget about it. While its natural dispersal would be with the feathers of birds.
Yeah.
And
And some seals, depending on where the seals are.
Depending on where the seals are. And birds and seals don't move all around the island. They don't go to the top. They don't go to the very high. And mice actually do. So you have this very interesting study of perhaps some of the mice can actually distribute your one species of sedge and grass to a more higher altitude or make a habitat that's more suitable for other things.
It's interesting.
There's always a beneficial side of something that people always miss sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's not as important. And obviously a beautiful bird is much more important than a boring grass.
Very true.
You know, you can make more money out of a beautiful bird. You can't post a picture of a grass and get like 500 likes on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't. It's on the unfortunate truth, you know, but the value of the things is precisely the same.
If not more.
If not more, who knows? Anyway.
Because
Actually-
the thing is, without your plants and your insects in your soil, the birds don't have a home.
Exactly. They can't build their nests. They need vegetation to build their
Exactly.
nests. Definitely. Now, the other day I was eating some of the polypogon grass and it tasted like And then it tastes like flour. I'm not even
Eating
joking.
your fresh vegetables.
Yeah, I was eating it. We don't have never fresh vegetables. But it really tasted like flour. I was like, yo, you could probably take these seeds and make flour out of it. I'm pretty sure.
Try.
But I don't really know how the seeds look like, to be honest. The seeds are very small and inconspicuous. I don't think all the plants actually bear seeds.
And you haven't tried to collect any to look at under the
No,
microscope with?
I've collected that wild cabbage, the Pringlia species. I collected some now. I want to take some back, actually. I know. Oh, I can. I have a permit for it, so it's fine. Yeah, that'd be cool. I want to try, or actually germinate them in the lab or something, or just at base, and keep like a population there that you can use as studies. That would be cool to have.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. But I think going back to debating, will work easier here than in Goff. And I think the reason is because of the climate more. Because at Goff it's warmer. And like you said, the mice are there the whole year. And here you have a season where there are not really that many.
Yeah.
So I would think if you could kill all of them in winter, yeah, I don't know, I just think it's going to be easier, yeah.
Yeah, I think it will work. But I don't know. It is, yeah. I do feel like the Mouse-Free Marine team is going to benefit in M82's year. Just by having Von and Rolf.
Because they have some experience now.
No. I mean, they have 2 years experience on Goff. So they have pre-eradication
experience.
A little bit of pre-eradication experience, then eradication experience, and post-eradication experience.
That's probably what I got it and why they wanted them. I think it's quite smart of them to get a couple.
Yeah.
To live here on this island because they're gonna work really well together, I would say. I don't know. You never know.
No,
maybe they won't.
They do work. They work very well together.
Yeah.
Has he contacted you yet?
No, he hasn't contacted me.
Okay.
No, but like, when did you give him?
A few days ago.
A few days ago. No, he hasn't.
Okay.
I'm sure he will probably.
Maybe he's gone away. Maybe they've gone to visit his family or something before they go and do.
Do you know what they did before they're coming here? What were they busy with?
So Von was finishing her PhD.
Okay.
And her PhD had something to do with microplastics in seabirds. I don't know. She did tell me once all of it, but I don't remember all of it, so I have to ask her again. But I know she went out on boats and I think they collected a lot of plastic from the ocean, and then I have a feeling that like when we collect plastic here and our measuring and weighing of it somehow went into her research well.
So who did she work for or work under?
Peter Ryan was her supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Just through UCT.
So it's like a relation everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, everything's related.
It is. And then.
But what is that about? Like you measure the plastic. What does that tell you? I don't get it.
The only thing I can think that it tells me is, so the plastic we collect at nests.
Yeah.
I have to measure each piece. So.
Weigh it.
I have to weigh it and then measure the
length.
The depth, the length, the width. And then take photos. The only thing I can say is that it has something to do with to show what the bird has consumed. And let's say you know that a bird has to consume 1/3 of its body weight in food to survive. If 1/3 of that is consisting of plastic, you can work out that the plastic may be weighed more than the food, so the bird hasn't actually gained the nutrition that it needs to sustain itself for that day or for that week before it
Okay.
goes off and gets more food. That's the only thing I can surmise from it. And then obviously it needs to vomit to get the plastic out,
Oh.
because the plastic isn't digesting and that causes issues in the bird. So then it vomits, but with the vomit of plastic, it's also vomiting up its food.
But how do they consume the plastic? Do they consume it accidentally? Like,
Accidentally when they're fishing, I
When
guess.
they're
It
fishing.
could also be in a fish.
yeah, the fish could probably eat it as
Yeah.
well. Oh. Okay,
Because
so
I mean, I've retrieved fishing hooks.
yeah, I've
That
seen
means
that.
the bird swallowed a fishing hook and
So the fishing hook's probably stuck on the
on
fish.
the fish.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the bird just swallows the whole fish
Yeah.
without knowing.
Exactly.
Then it has to vomit up the.
The fishing hook.
But that's cool that they're able to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, not many bird species can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
when I worked at Sandcarp, and I can show you the videos. We had a bird come in, a penguin, with a fishing hook down in its stomach and the fishing line
Sure.
hanging out of its beak, and we had to remove that. So our vet at the time, well, he was the director of Sandcarp actually at the time, but he was also a clinical veterinarian. We had to put KY jelly on a hose pipe, like a thin hose pipe tube,
Mm-hmm.
insert that into the esophagus,
Yeah.
and he fashioned something that would enable him to get the hook
Yeah.
and then pull it out.
But couldn't you just injure the bird internally by pulling? But you had no
Yeah.
other choice.
He had no other choice, but luckily he didn't. The bird was fine.
Sure.
But so the other option you could have done with that was force the bird to vomit, but that actually would have done more damage, because then the fishing hook would have scraped
To scrape.
the whole esophagus. Whereas if it comes up in the pipe, and
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
maneuvered the pipe very carefully
Over the
fishing hook,
over
you've
the
got
fishing
less,
hook.
less
Oh,
likelihood
okay.
of damage.
That's actually very smart. Instead of vomiting, because then you
Yeah.
could have had it turn. Yeah.
Oh, that bird was mean. Wow.
Mean. Well, he had a fish hook inside
Yo,
of
he
him,
was
so.
so angry, like to try and catch him to give him his medication and stuff. Wow, he was a
Sure.
very angry bird. When I had volunteers and interns to train, if the volunteer or the intern wasn't behaving themselves, I would be like, I've got a bird for you to catch today. He needs his medications. That one.
Shame. Poor volunteer.
Yeah, but that's how you get them to behave.
Yeah. Oh, man. So you had volunteers who didn't behave?
Oh, lots. You'll be surprised. Rich kids, their parents have paid for them to have a gap year, but it must be a gap year where they do something
Volunteering
and learn
shit.
something. And they don't care.
They don't give a shit. They
And
just.
they also come there because, I'm going to get to hug a penguin. And it's like, no. It's not how it works.
Sorry.
Sorry, you got to work.
You gotta work.
90% of your job is cleaning. Sorry.
I wanna work, mommy.
Yeah.
know.
But I can show you the videos of that because they filmed it for TV programs.
Sure.
So I've been on TV for that stuff.
Yeah, I always wondered because I've seen the plastic and I collected some few at one time and where the fuck does plastic come from? I wonder if you could analyze it and see, it's from South America or it's from Africa or it's from wherever.
They can,
China.
because there's some bottles or bottle caps that have inscriptions on them. And so some of the bottle caps here, you'll see they're actually Coca-Cola bottle caps, or there's Aqua written on them. So you do have a way of assessing where they've come from.
Yeah. But that's the other thing. Many of the plastics anyway made in China, so
Yeah.
everything probably just comes from China.
From
But
China.
it was in China, then it was in South America, then it was in Marion.
Isn't Marion, exactly.
In an albatross. What the hell? Fucking weird.
I mean, most of these birds, even your giant petrels, I can guarantee you their stomachs have plastic inside that
I
they
will
can't
believe you.
vomit out.
They can't vomit out. Why can't they vomit out?
Or they haven't been able to vomit it out. It's still living inside them. I've
Like
had
large chunks? Or is it
probably
like
large chunks or
microplastics mainly?
microplastics. Most of your birds, let's say, when an albatross gets to South Africa, or a giant petrel, and ends up being rescued by an organization like Sandcarp, a lot of them, basically when they get to Sandcarp, you have about 2 weeks with a bird like that.
Mm.
If in 2 weeks you haven't been able to improve its condition, so let's say it comes in, it's weak, it's dehydrated, you can see it's emaciated. If in 2 weeks you haven't been able to improve that condition, you guarantee it's going to die.
It's gonna die.
And when you do an autopsy, there'll be plastic in the stomach.
Yo, always.
More often than not. Yeah.
Yo. Crazy shit.
Yeah.
So they live with plastic in large chunks.
That's what it seems like.
That means we also live with plastics, but we mainly live with
We
microplastics.
have lots
probably.
of microplastics. They've found microplastics in our lungs, in our blood.
In our blood, yeah, I know.
Recently in the male penis.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've heard about that.
So it's everywhere. See, don't eat fish.
Well, but it depends on the plastic inside of you, because some of the plastics can't even be dissolved by like hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid. So if you get it inside your body, is it really a problem? It's only a problem if it blocks something, if you think about it. But if it's not blocking anything, it's not gonna like chemically
You'd hope
react.
It would go through you then.
Yeah, you'll hope, exactly. Just go through the digestive system or something.
But what's interesting is, how does a microplastic get into your blood?
It must be super tiny.
Yeah.
We're talking about micrometer tiny plastics, not just centimeter, millimeter plastic, even small. I think that's the stuff that can get in your blood, because I can't remember the numbers, but your cell membrane is what? I think it is 0.6 micrometers. Cell membrane, right? 0.06 or something like that.
Something like that.
It's very small. So if the plastic is smaller than that, you can technically diffuse through your cells. So that's what they're talking about. That's the actual microplastics that we're talking about. That's dangerous, I think. So I think that, but humans can solve that. You can make plastics that can't degrade to that level. But then you have the problem of, do you want plastics to stay a certain size forever or for long periods? I don't know.
You want to be able to recycle them, but then you need a responsible human race that doesn't litter.
Yeah, so it's really a big problem. But it's also, if it wasn't for plastics, we wouldn't have had things. I wouldn't have been able to record this, because the cell phone's basically made of plastic. So we need plastic in our life as well. That's the other problem. I think it's time we boil the kettle.
Yeah.
We're gonna boil the kettle. We still have water here.
I think so. I'm sure there's enough.
Yeah, I thought actually we would have seen a lot more obscure and strange things, but we didn't really. It was like a really normal. Yeah. Well, I don't know what normal is yet, but I kind of know now. I'm not sure. What do you want to drink?
We'll have a hot chocolate and a coffee, please.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, we're back.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. We got a hot chocolate.
Yay.
It's nice and cold here. Well, not really. In here in the hut, it's not as cold. It's lekker. It's warm. Okay, I had another question actually,
Okay.
and we haven't actually touched on the subject. But when you worked, I don't know what the company's name was, but with those wind farms
Yes.
and the wind turbines, what did you do there, and when was this before Gough? It was after, no?
This is after Gough.
This was it just after Gough Island?
It was about a month after Gough Island. Well, no, maybe more. Maybe. Let me think. So 3 weeks after I got back from Gough, I went to work in the Kruger for 2 weeks. And then I was back from there for 2 weeks. And then I went to work with the wind farm stuff. Well, it's not with the wind farm company, but it's with ecological consulting firms who were doing the EIAs for potential wind farm developments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did that work?
What, as in what did you do, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a nice job because it was freelance. So they'll phone you up and they go, hey, we've got this project where you go do bird surveys at this place. Your accommodation, your food, your transport is all sorted and paid for. And then, you know, if you want to do it, you go, yay, I'll go do it. And if you don't, then you don't.
Okay, and where?
So, where
Sorry.
was it?
Yeah, like where did you have to go? Like what? Is it like the whole country, or was it like?
So most of it was the northern and the western Cape.
Okay.
So my first one was Britstown in the Karoo.
Oh, I think I've seen the wind turbines there. There's a lot there.
If they've been built, there's probably more now.
Oh.
But I don't know if the EIA got passed. I haven't heard. But we stayed on this hunting lodge, one of the biggest ones in the Karoo. He breeds springbok. And then runs hunting lodges or hosts hunting people. So yeah, that was the one there. I did that. The first trip I did was 2 weeks, and then I went back again for a month for the last part of that project. But you basically you drive to different sites. That farm had 33 sites across the whole area. It's a huge area. And there's 3 teams of 2 people. So 6 of us. And you basically go to your site. You do 2 sites per day. And you spend 4 hours at each site. And on your way to the site and back from the site, you have to, whenever you see a raptor or a blue crane or a white stork.
Is this like a live one or a
live one?
Live
so flying or in a field.
Oh.
You have to count them and note them down as incidental records. So they occur here, so there's potential that if there's wind farms, they're going to fly into the wind farms. And then when you get to your site, you sit at a vantage point for 4 hours. And every time a raptor species, a blue crane or a white stork flies within your vicinity, so there's a particular radius that you're watching, you have to record it. So you have to identify it. Then you have to watch its flight path and record the amount of time that you're watching its flight path, like what direction it's flying, what it's doing. You know, is it hunting? Is it just flying straight? Is it hovering? And then you also record your weather, your temperature, your wind speed, precipitation.
And this is all for like an EIA report, basically. Yeah.
Basically.
Because I've learned that for EIA reports, birds is a big thing. It's they have a big impact. If there's an endangered bird, project will probably be cancelled usually, or it's
Yeah.
a big impact. I can't remember exactly because I did a course on it. I want to do it again just to enlighten myself, basically. Just to, I like to learn a lot of things. It's not necessarily I'm gonna go into it. I just want to know how it works.
How it works.
It's
You
really
can
nice.
understand it.
Yeah. But like, I know insects is not a problem. No one gives a damn if there's endangered insects. Sometimes, but there's no law for it apparently. There's no
yet,
expert.
no.
Not yet. Hopefully there will be one day.
In other countries, you have more of that.
Yeah.
Because they look at, it's not just the impact that once the wind farm is up, what that causes, but you also got to think about the impact of building the wind farm. You've
Exactly.
got to divert roads, you may have to
Yes.
create new roads, you've got to dig holes for your electricity poles, then there's all the buildings and things you've got to do, and what are you actually digging up in that environment? And that's one thing that I think there's a limited amount of research and reporting in South Africa on that. They don't necessarily look at those impacts, whereas in other countries they do. Like in the UK, I did it for bats, not necessarily for wind farm developments, but it was for building of new roads and extension of new roads. And so I did bat transect surveys, and on the same EIAs there were people monitoring the invertebrates in ponds and river systems. They were monitoring the newts, because there's quite a few endangered species of newt. So they were monitoring, like, you know, we're on this stretch of road, they want to expand the road, but next to the road there's like this river or the stream that's flowing
Newt is
by.
like an amphibian, right?
Yeah, it's an amphibian. So they would assess, you know, does this stream have newts in it? If it does, and it's the endangered type, sorry, road is not going to be expanded.
Yeah.
And same with bats. If there were bats along that road that were endangered species,
Which is
and lots
definitely
of
a
them,
good thing.
then they stop it.
I'm really glad that they do that, but I've also realized people can, there's loopholes in that system, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's bothering me. Like, people use that to their advantage. They could say there's endangered things so that they can stop a project from happening, and then it's not truthful, or
Also, you get some
the
that will
opposite.
fudge the results.
Yeah.
They won't report on
and
something
they won't
because
report on it. They want
obviously everyone gets money.
Yes, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I hate about the EIA stuff, but I'm pretty sure most of the people involved try and, I think in South Africa at least, try and do the right thing, you know. They want to save. That's why the people that gets into EIA should come from I feel like a conservation background where they have a love for the environment. And I've noticed some of the people that go into EIA, and not all of them really do not like the environment.
They're not conservation based, but they have done other degrees that, like they're doing like an environmental studies degree, for example.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean or relate to like a love for the environment.
Exactly. It's like doing a marketing degree. Nobody really loves fucking marketing, but you just go do it because you want a job in something. And then, but you get some small companies who's in EIA, which I've got to know, that really care. They're very private. They only take on certain projects. And it feels like there's a lot of jobs these days for that, because there has to be an EIA for any new development.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of jobs there for that. So basically for your wind stuff, you were like a specialist kind of for birds, people.
I suppose so. I don't know about specialists, but just.
But you count the number of
experienced
birds and you looked.
Yeah, in IDing birds as well. Because I mean, not only did we do the raptors and assessing their flight pathways and how long they're flying in the area, you're also looking at the height and how their height changes in flight. So when they go to this level and then they go to that level, and you know, obviously their behavior in flight, what are they doing? Because if it's a hunting ground, then you don't want to build there because that's obviously going to impact them getting food. And then also finding nests. So like on the Breda River I found 3 Marshall eagle nests. That was quite cool.
That's cool.
Because I got to see some juvenile Marshall eagles
Wow.
quite close up. That was really nice.
Like, where did they make it on the river? Like,
In
is it like on a
what's that
edge
tree?
or is it on a tree?
It's in a tree. It's a huge nest. Most of them on the edge of the river, like on the river bank, the trees that are there.
Where in the Brerevuur was this?
It's on someone's farmland property, so you wouldn't be able to go there unless you had a canoe that you could canoe up the river.
But like, is it in what part of the? Is my question.
That particular one was.
Was it close to? I don't know.
Do you know where the buffaloes
Malchas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Malchas. It was close to Malchas.
So I know that part is quite wild.
It's close to Malchas.
That's a nice area.
Yeah, it's a very nice area. But there's lots of blue cranes there, lots of Marshall eagles.
Yes, there's a lot of
eagles.
blue cranes, fish eagles.
There's also
you
booted
you
eagles.
get the
There's
what's that tiger shark in the Brerevuur there?
Yes, I know.
That swim upstream.
I went
from
to
the
swim a
coast.
few times in the
They say it's
River.
super dangerous. Actually, you can get killed. by the shark.
Kyle said to me when I used to go there, don't go swimming. And I was like, oh, do you know how hot it gets there when you're sitting for 4 hours in a car with no shade?
Ew.
No, you gotta go have a swim.
It's a beautiful river, that actually. I've had the privilege to go on a boat there. One of my
that's
friends
nice.
went to fish on the Breda River. And I think I caught a steenbras, and I'm not a fisherman really. I was really lucky, but it was too small, so we had to put it back.
Oh.
But yeah, what a nice place.
But yeah, I mean, with those EIAs, you also do. So I did walking transits. And that's looking at the terrestrial birds, so the small birds, your passerines and all of those. So you walk a 500 meter, it was 500 meter transect, and along your transect, everything that's in front of you, you ID either by sight
Any
or
bird.
sound, any bird,
Any bird.
and
sound,
try and count
sound.
the number as well,
Sure.
and the
That's
distance
difficult.
it is from you.
Now what happens if you hear one and you hear another one at the same time and you get confused? Just try
That's
your
why
best.
there's 2 of you.
That's why.
Yeah, you try and try
Okay.
and do that. You do that on game reserves as well when you do birding transects.
Yeah, I've never done a birding transect. I don't know.
It's nice. It's fun. You learn a lot. You learn a lot of different calls.
Yeah, I would
and-
think. And what makes it fun is that I would think, that you're focusing just on the birds. You're just walking, you're trying to focus on the birds. So you get to learn quickly, probably.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've experienced with IDing trees. I only focused on the trees.
You get
That's
to
it.
learn them.
You get to learn them very quickly then. And you just focus on the one thing. Because when you walk in a reserve or a nature spot, there's so many things going around.
Exactly.
Like here, for instance, there's so many things going on around you. So many penguins running around there. But you have to focus on one thing at a time, really, to get to know the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know
It
what I'm
does.
saying.
It makes sense. You have to.
Yeah.
And there's one part in Swellendam. There's a farm there. The guy breeds rhinos. And our one
Black rhino or
white.
white rhino?
Yeah, white rhinos are easier to breed. Black rhinos are very difficult because they're more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
and they're more solitary, whereas white rhinos tend to live in groups. But yeah, they breed the rhinos there, and where one of our sites is, we sit right opposite the camp where the rhinos were. And some of the rhinos come close to the fence, and that was nice.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Rhinos are beautiful creatures. Yeah, I wish I can, in the future, I can get to work with more of the big wild animals, or just visit it at least more.
Well, off the topic, in case you're interested, Endangered Wildlife Trust are advertising for a field officer up in Soutpansberg, which is in Haifa province, or a field officer in Amatole, Eastern Cape.
Amatole! That's a cool place, because I want to do the hike there, the multi-day hike, Amatole hike through the forest there, misspelled forest. Yo, that would be awesome. Okay, that's good that you're telling me that. I will look into it. Definitely. So how long did you work with the wind farm stuff? It wasn't that long.
A year
A
and a half almost.
And it was freelancing. So did you have to do another job as well? Or
No, luckily not, because they paid very well.
that's good.
Yeah, and because I was the team leader.
Oh.
So my first time doing it, I wasn't the team leader. The first 2 weeks I did, I wasn't. And then every project after that, they asked if I wanted to lead the team. So I managed the team budget, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, liaise with the accommodation that we had, organize all of that. And yeah, just very nice. So Vaughn came to help me with some of that as well, because she needed some work to supplement her PhD. And then Dylan Seaton also, before he came to Marion,
And he also
came to help, because he also needed extra money. It's nice work. You have freedom.
Yeah. It sounds fun. You explored a lot.
Yeah, I went to Bridgetown. I did 2 seasons Bridgetown, and I did 1 season in Clan William.
Yeah.
That was a nice place as well. And then the rest of my time was actually more in Swellendam. 6 seasons in Swellendam.
Do they have wind farms there?
Yeah, they want to build more.
Gosh, but on what type of land do they want to build it? Like, is it
farmland?
Farmland,
yeah. Because obviously it gives a lot of money to the farmers.
And that's why they're willing to let it happen.
Yeah. That's why you have to be so careful as well, because the farmers, obviously they know that you're coming onto their land, so you have to liaise with them to be like, obviously we're from this company, these days we're coming on to do the survey, and most of them their gates are open, so it's fine, you can just go through. But some of them will come and like when you're on the property, they'll come to the car to come and talk to you,
ask you what are you doing here.
Yeah, but also find out, so what have you seen, because they want to know, have you seen something endangered?
Yeah,
because if I do, there's a chance that
they won't get
their money. So you have to be very careful when you speak to them, and very vague with your information. So, and sadly, sorry, on side topic, Andries is not vague.
Yeah, I would think your partner is not vague. Oh man, that guy.
And obviously he then goes and finds some endangered plants as well. And then he's talking to them about the plants, and you're just like,
oh no, Andries, don't tell them that now. Don't make them agitated. That's just more problems. But do you think do they rent them out, their property, or do they sell a part of their property for the wind farms? Do you know?
I would imagine they sell a part of it.
They sell a part of it. They don't rent it out.
I don't think they rent it out. I think they get more if they sell a part of it, because it's a big lump sum that they get.
And who's in charge of these wind farms?
Different companies.
Different
that are in
companies.
charge. Yeah, I can't remember their names.
Is it South African companies or?
Some of them are South African, some of them are African. Or they're a South African company, but they have wind farms in other countries. Like there's one company that has wind farms in the Eastern Cape, and then they have wind farms up in Kenya as well. And they're actually a decent company because they mitigate a lot for the birds and the bats. Whereas there are some wind farm companies that won't mitigate, which means they won't obey like certain rules about.
What do you mean by mitigate? How do they mitigate?
So most of your really good wind farms have also got bird surveys on the wind farm, and they sit in, like this particular company has built like huts essentially at high vantage points by the wind farms in various locations close to the wind farms, and birders sit in there for the whole day and they watch what birds are coming into the area. And so if you have your raptors coming in or your blue cranes or whatever, the moment it comes within a specific range of a wind turbine, they radio the operation room, and the operation room shuts the turbine down until that bird has left the area.
How efficient is that for power?
It's not very efficient, but...
I don't know, that sounds a lot of effort, because now you have to pay a person to look for birds.
Yeah.
And then you also lose money when the bird comes. And sometimes the person can make a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they still seem
I didn't
to
even
do
know
very
that's a
well.
thing.
And then you also, so part of the freelance work, I didn't get to do it, but some people were doing it, is they go to the wind farms and they're scouring below the wind turbines for carcasses to find how many birds have been impacted.
Yeah.
And some wind turbine companies, apart from employing the birders to monitor for live birds, they also have a group that do the same thing.
Yeah.
They do ground searches so they can see the impact of the wind turbine.
Yeah.
And then if their mitigation measures are actually having an impact or not.
Sure. But the company, they sell the power to Eskom, or what do they do with the power they generate?
It does go to Eskom.
It goes into the grid.
Yeah, because this is Eskom is trying to push for more. Well, in fact, they're actually trying to push for more solar now than they are wind farms.
Yeah, it makes more sense probably.
But they want to push for solar farms, and that has its own potential downside. Because the way the farms are built, and I mean, I don't know how true this is, but it's something I learned at uni from one of my professors. He said that you've got to think how the solar farm is built. You've got this piece of land and all these massive solar panels quite low to the ground. Not only does it pose a risk for your terrestrial birds, because they can go under there and get too hot and die, but those panels are picking up so much heat, and that heat then goes into the ground. You are warming up the ground below the panel. What impact is that having on your invertebrates, your plant life, and all of that? And how detrimental is that to the overall ecosystem? It doesn't seem to be a thing that's being looked at or investigated.
Yeah.
So for me, why are we doing these big farms? We should just literally be building solar panels on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Your abandoned buildings that are not going to be used.
Exactly.
Every person's house, every office block should have solar panels. Why go and build this whole massive farm of solar panels when you have infrastructure already there that you could just put the panels on? Because you think about a big solar farm, not only have you got to build the solar farm, but you've also got to lay the cables to get the electricity back to the towns or to the grid.
And that's a lot of money.
When you've already got infrastructure that's linked to the grid.
Linked to the grid, yeah. No, I agree, definitely. It would be much more
Yeah.
beneficial if each building, that it has to be law actually, that each building that you build today has to have a solar panel or whatever, something green to harvest its
Yeah.
own energy, even though if it's just for the lights, for instance, of the place, or
Exactly.
it doesn't have to be for everything, because it's not always as efficient and you need more power for solar, unfortunately. To, let's say, for instance, it's a restaurant and there's a lot of ovens. Now that solar power might not be able to harvest that all of the energy there. But I hear what you're saying. No, definitely, all the buildings should have solar power. But I wanted to mention, I can remember I drove at the R. It's also there, close to Bridgestone. There's a big solar solar panel plant, let's say that. I don't know what you call it, field. But I've seen they fenced it in.
Yeah.
With like a large fence. So I think it's for animals that they can't get in.
Yeah. So,
So
I mean, obviously
nothing-
your mammals can't get in, but your birds can still.
No, your birds and everything can
I
still
mean, a
get
bird
in.
can actually. So there's some birds that, at a certain height and angle, if your solar panels are at a certain height and angle, from the sky, it actually looks like water, and they land on the solar
they
panel
land on it.
and poof, fried to death.
Fried.
Yeah.
Is that how hot it can get?
Yeah.
You can get that hot and you can fry a bird.
Yeah.
Like a
That's what
small
I've
bird,
heard.
or is it like big birds? Any
It's
bird?
probably a small bird. I mean, that's what I've heard. I'm not going to say that that's true or.
I've heard
But
from my
makes
side.
sense.
No, I think it's true what you're saying, because I've heard you get different type of solar panels. We get that one with the tower. I don't know if you heard about that one, where the tower moves as the sun,
As the sun.
and then
yeah.
it reflects the light onto the other solar panels. I think
Yeah.
that one fries
Fry that.
all the birds, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure about the field of panels everywhere. I'm not sure about that one. It probably also gets hot, but I don't think that fries the bird. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but.
I don't know exactly about that, but I've heard about it being fried, and there's also a lot of EIA work that goes into that. Yeah, but I don't know what's the long-term goal for green energy. I don't know what's the solution there.
It's like we said the other day, I think that, it's green energy, but even green energy is not green.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Just to build it is not green.
And the materials you have to use, the batteries you make to store it, what about all those stuff,
Exactly.
Where does that come from? It needs to come from somewhere. Nothing will ever be totally renewable.
No.
Yeah. Except if it's a human. Human is not renewable. It's like the Matrix,
Yeah.
Use humans to harvest energy. Because they can just breed and make more and more and more and more and more. And just feed them some weird substance. I don't know. I'm just talking crap now. Harvest energy from humans. Holy crap. It's possible. I've seen this one show. Where was it? It's like a green hotel where people, everything's connected to the infrastructure. And when you're in the gym and you're riding on that cycle, you're harvesting energy for the lights or whatever. I was like, oh my word, guys. That's not harvesting that much, but still,
Imagine
I like the idea.
if you did that. Every gym.
Yeah.
Supplements are great. I mean, your treadmill, you run on a treadmill and it feeds into power, or
Yeah,
the rowing machines in the gym, or.
But you have to store the power. Otherwise, you won't have it.
But if
Otherwise,
it
you have
goes
to
into
use
a
it directly.
battery,
Yeah, then it's fine.
you
Then
can
it's
do
cool.
it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I like the idea of it. It's funny. The Green Hotel or something. What did they call that? The Green Hotel.
Just imagine you did that in your house. Kids, if you want the lights on tonight, get on the bike.
Get on the bike. You want to play PlayStation? Get on the bike. You have to Flip
Hey,
and
it would
ride on
solve
the-
obesity problems.
Exactly. You have to drive while you're
Yeah.
playing. That's the only way the TV is going to stay on. The
Exactly.
computer.
What,
Only stays
what
on.
motivation for kids? You want your cell phone to work? You want to use Facebook tonight? Get on the bike.
Get on the bike. Only way you'll get an energy.
Ew.
Oh gosh.
And then at school, they all have exercise bikes at their desks or something.
Yeah. Oh my word.
The moon is bright.
Yeah, the moon is quite bright now. I love it when the moon is bright. You can see everything outside. You can just go
those
walk
clouds.
and see everything. Walk in the field or whatever.
Yeah.
It's nice. But yeah. How long have you been going on?
Probably over 2 hours.
Yo, you've been going on very long.
Yeah. Yo, you're going to make a Joe Rogan style podcast.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying. No, I'm joking. I'm not trying. I just want to... It's the same concept.
Mm.
I also just want to talk to people. Because I feel like... even though you know people, you never have a chance to just talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've learned a lot now more about you just because we made it a platform to talk on. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
And sometimes if you don't make it a platform, you're not going to talk. You're
Yeah,
gonna
exactly, because when you have normal conversation,
Yeah.
you just end up talking about the drama going on in your life at that
Exactly,
moment.
exactly.
You're not actually talking about
We're not talking about stuff.
or something that's interesting.
I'm making
You're just talking about complaints you have, basically.
Exactly. Oh, that's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to make a platform to talk on, you know. Just speak what we know.
Yeah.
Share ideas, share... That's what I would say. And obviously focus on conservation because that's what I'm interested in. I'm
Yeah.
interested in nature and all kinds of cool things.
You
Energy.
want to know all about it, as
Yeah.
much as you can find out about it.
Exactly. That's the goal of it. Yeah, while we're doing that, we're wasting energy here in the form of gas. Sitting with a heater.
Yeah.
In this cold environment.
Burning a candle.
Burning a candle.
Mm.
Oh well. Oh.
Takeover will be soon, don't worry. The gas will be replaced and maybe M82 will get candles. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe they will get candles. That's just... It's a very sad thing that... Yeah, about the whole Marion experience. Because I thought there will be more order and... But obviously that's not the case.
No.
There's a lot of corruption and everything. Unfortunately. But I feel that's other times talk.
Yeah, because that can go
That
on
can
for
go on
3
forever.
hours or longer.
Yeah, I think we should wrap it up here, no?
Yeah,
I think we've talked enough.
I think so.
Yeah.
You've got enough content
Yeah.
for
For
whatever you want to use it for.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you. Thank you for talking to me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you everyone
you.
for listening.
Yeah, thank you, birds.
Yeah, thank you birds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mice. There was a mouse under
There was a
that
mouse.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you there.
Yeah.
Thank you mouse. Thank
Thank you,
everything.
flies. Where's the flies?
Okay, cool.